afternoon, and welcome to Jeff and the Rabbi. Got a good discussion today. Everything in the news we've been watching about these NFL players, Ray Rice beating up his wife or fiance in the elevator, things like that, and it's all over the news. It's what everybody's talking about right now.
That's right.
Yeah. So I figure I know where you're going with this one. You're kind of a one-trick pony. It's going to be, you're going to talk about what the Torah says about it and how you're supposed to live.
There you go.
So I figured I'll give you a little setup here.
Okay.
You know, I'm going to give my opinion. First, you go what everybody else is saying. You listen to the talking heads. It's a typical thing. Oh, you got a guy. He goes through high school. He's the king. No one says no to him. You know, he's playing football or basketball, whatever it happens to be. He never hears the word no from the girls, from the teachers, from the coaches. They come down to recruit him. He goes into college. They give him an easy path, and then they're recruiting him into the pros. He's playing pro football. Finally, someone says no to him. Bam, he punches them in the face. I mean, that's the easy story, and everybody says, well, how can we let this happen in society? That's what they say. I'm going to take a little bit of different take on it. I'm going the anti-progressive route. I'm a one-trick pony as well here. I think the real issue that we have here in society, and I think people have to look at this with ball players and everyone else, is what progressivism has done to society. You take a kid, he grows up, most probably, I don't know this guy Ray Rice, most probably they grow up in a single-family home, because there's no such thing as a traditional family anymore where there's one man, one woman, and there's children. And when I say traditional, I don't mean 2 women, 3 men, and a squirrel. I mean, 1 man, 1 woman. We don't have that. So this guy grows up in a home where he doesn't see how a man and a woman are supposed to treat each other, because he doesn't have a father. Then the situation gets even worse, because then progressive society today tells people there's no difference between a man and a woman. There's no role for a man, and there's no role for a woman. So they go through society from kindergarten, 1st grade on, saying there's no boy and there's no girl. There's now, in some states, laws that if a boy feels like a girl today, he can go into the girls' restroom. He can change in the girls' locker room and even play for the girls' team, because we're not allowed to say that he's a boy or he's a girl. Even if he was a boy yesterday, today he can be a girl. And we expect this not to change society and not to be an effect. I have a quick story here. This is probably going to get me in trouble, but that's never really stopped me before. I have a friend, and one of his relatives decided one day that their 4-year-old, I think it was 4 years old, 4-year-old son really liked the dress that his mother was wearing. So they got him a dress and let him go to school the next day in the dress. Now, this wasn't for the boy. This was for them. They put it up on Facebook, and all their liberal friends write, "Oh, you're such modern family. So proud of you to do this." Of course, I wanted to write something, but I decided I probably shouldn't give my answer, because I might have got kicked out of Facebook. And this is what they do today. So the boy wears a dress to school, and we go to where there are now boys' bathrooms, girls' bathrooms, and mandated now in some colleges other. So they decide. And I know we're a little bit older, but we take a child, and I'm not making like this guy Ray Rice or whoever he is as a victim. You tell him there's no man at home, so he doesn't see what's going on. You tell him then for his entire life there is no difference between a man and woman. There's no chivalry. You're not allowed to be chivalrous anymore. There's no role. And then you send him through a life like this and expect him to turn out differently. And in the same time, a woman goes through the same role. I'm sure I don't know anything about Ray Rice's girlfriend or fiance, but I go to some of these clubs these days, and I've seen young women, young girls, say things that I don't even say to my friends. And I've only seen 2 fights in clubs since I've been going to clubs, and both of them with women. No men involved. And they're out there cussing and yelling and fighting.
That's why I stopped going to clubs. When the women started fighting, I just said, forget it. I'm not going anymore.
That was the end of it for you.
Yeah. Couldn't handle that.
So here we have this guy in an elevator, or wherever. He's got a woman that he doesn't know the difference between a man and a woman, saying the same things that a guy would say to him, and if a guy said this to him, he'd punch him in the face.
Right.
Then the woman hits him, so he punches her in the face.
Right.
And we're mad about it. We've trained this guy to do this, and as a society, we're mad about it. So again, I go back to my theory. It's liberalism, it's progressivism. You can't put a guy in a society where we intentionally take away the father, so he doesn't have a role model, and then intentionally say there is no difference between a man and a woman, and then get mad when he, as we say, you're never allowed to hit a woman. Well, who says that? So I'm setting you up here because I figured if there were rules, if anywhere in this world there happened to be a rule book of how we are supposed to treat men and women, I don't know one, but I'm sure you do, that would be great to have.
Well, you know, you are taking on the society.
Yep.
But I'm going to really take on society because, after this, you think you're going to get blacklisted? I'm for sure going to get blacklisted. I'm actually going to take on the institution of football.
Well, no, that's...
Whoa, forget it.
You don't mean college football, though, right?
The screen just went black on me, like it's half of the screen is like, right.
I'm out.
Yeah, out of here.
What?
Not football per se, but of course the society that promotes this as the most popular entity in the absolute entire culture.
Yeah.
Even even when they do poor in their ratings, football games get more than anyone else. They're making so much money, they just don't know what to do with it. They build huge stadiums, try to get a bridge fixed in this country. You can't do it.
No.
Houses are falling apart, roads are falling apart. Build a stadium, well, we got to have the stadium.
I mean, Atlanta, we're building a brand new stadium in the parking lot of our other brand new stadium.
Right.
I think it's great.
The bridges are 60 years old. The stadium's 20. We need a new stadium.
Right.
Yeah. So the society, and to me, I would do just the opposite. The way I would sit my son down, and I'd say to my son, "See this football player here? He beat up his wife, because that's what you get from football players. That's what football is." Think about this for just a minute. It's. I could ask the question, would you send your son or would I send my son to play football? But we all both know that that's a joke because,
my son,
they're not really...
Maybe to manage the football team, possibly,
they're not coming to look for your son.
No.
I don't care how much equipment they put on yours or mine. They're not going to play football.
Not going to happen.
But you're going into a job where you teach the other person that when someone tries to stop you, you act violently. You hit them. That's what your job. When they blow a whistle, you're supposed to hit the other guy. Preferably hit him till he's totally immobilized, till he's down on the ground and he cannot move anymore. Okay? Now, on the other hand, what else are you supposed to do? You're supposed to show total disregard for your body. Total disregard for your body. I would ask anyone here, just leap onto the ground. An average person, as fast as you can. I want you to run and throw yourself onto the ground.
That hurts.
Who would do that? It hurts so much.
Yeah.
It hurts so much. So no, that's what you have to do. Disregard for your body. So teaching disregard for other people's body and other people. And as a matter of fact, if you're not tough, you don't have your game face on, you're not focused, we don't even want you, right? We want you to be tough and go knock him, drive his head into the turf or astroturf or whatever it is. That's the way you have to be. So disregard your own body, disregard the other person's body. And by the way, when you get hurt, so there's a whole room, go back in the locker room, got a whole bunch of painkillers there, and everyone comes in, everyone knows that when all the players show up for the football game, says, the doctor says, "What do you want?" And he's got all the syringes out. Heard this football player saying, every locker room they get a whole bunch of syringes and everyone just shooting up this and give me a couple on the knee and give me an elbow and give you. So would you take a job? Now I know there's a lot of people that take painkillers to go to work and it's really tough and they need to go to work and they need to earn a living. But do you take a job that by definition says that you're going to have to take painkillers to go to this job? I understand people take jobs and then they end up getting hurt or something happens, they have to take painkillers. But by definition,
right,
that's what the job entails. So therefore, is it any surprise to anyone that when the guy is confronted by his wife, he does what we've been training him to do, like you said, since he's a little kid, right? That's what he's been trained to do. So what society instead should say is, this just shows us why we don't admire football players. Football players are akin to racehorses. If racehorses do something indecent, like right in the street, I say, he's a horse. What do you expect him to do?
That's a good point.
He's just a horse. So he just, goes and does something right in the middle of the street. That's what horses do. The football player is just a person who's been bred to be a horse. Is maybe like perhaps a more acrobatic boxer. Boxing is, of course, the best. The boxing, the two guys just stand there and just hit each other in the head.
Right.
You know, and then when you meet them when they're older and they can't talk and they slur their words and they can't really,
Right.
you know,
You wonder why that
maintain
happens,
any
right.
thought. And, yeah, right. You know, the only thing I was thinking is Mrs. Rice should be enrolled in the NFL concussion program. Because if anyone
That's a good point.
you know, they got the program there as all stuff. She's the one that needs it because for sure she got a concussion. I mean, concussion, she got knocked out. She got a total concussion, you know. So
That's probably a good point.
you know, so she should be enrolled in their program. But the point is that a society that admires this and then gets shocked, I don't care that the society admires it. Not even surprised that the football player punches his wife out. I'm surprised at a society that's shocked that the football player punches his wife out. I mean, what do you think these guys are? If we as a society want to breed them, then we have to presume that every Monday morning that they're all going to get hauled into jail for beating their wives and beating their children and smashing up cars and, you know, hanging out in bars late at night and getting in fights and all that stuff. They are bred for that. They're raised for that, and we pay large money because we can't imagine. It is so exciting. The guy goes way up in the air to catch the ball, and while he's way up in the air, another guy comes along and hits his legs out from under him, so he flips over 3 times and lands right on his head.
That's not good.
And then what everyone does is, yeah!
What?
That's amazing. The only question, did he hold on to the ball or did he not hold on to the ball?
Right.
But we
True.
think that that's the greatest. Well, obviously, if we're willing to pay to see people hurt each other and show disregard for themselves, we should not be at all surprised that that is the way they conduct themselves in their personal lives. If anything, if we're really so concerned, we should send them home with bodyguards. And aside from the fact that, by the way, all these guys are pumped so full of steroids
That's a
that
good
they're like
point, too.
totally crazed. They're half crazed out of their minds to start with. You know, they've been raised on them. I mean, where do you get physiques like this, right? They don't just have better weight rooms. You know, so they have these physiques. They're crazy. We as a society, if we wanted to create these beings, which we as a society have done, everyone who purchased, you know, NFL ticket and all that stuff, we created it. So what are you screaming about when it happens? What do you think? You think these guys, do you think Adrian Peterson knows how to raise children in a meaningful way? Give me a break.
Do I got to be the guy to bring up the Torah here? Is that what you're forcing me to do here, to go the other route here? I think it's me. I have to tell you, I agree with everything you're saying, but I think it goes deeper. If you know how to raise children, if you know how to have a traditional family, all these things that you're saying about, you know, the guy being raised, and we talked about it, and everybody talks about it on TV, to be violent, whatever, I understand that. But if you had a traditional family life where you see that no matter what you do on the football field in your job, I don't care if you're a plumber or if you're a football player, you don't beat your wife. And the husband has a job and a role, he takes care of the family, he does whatever, and the wife, she doesn't go out to a club and get in a fight with some other girls, she's got her role and she does whatever. And we know there is a difference between a man and a woman. And that's really what this is all. I think that's why everybody's so upset about this thing, the fact that he hit a woman. If he got in a fight in a bar and hit another guy, nobody would have cared. If he was gay and probably punched out his gay lover, I don't think they would be upset. I don't know. That's possible. It's the fact that he hit a woman, and they're so shocked that he hit a woman. Well, how could they be shocked? I agree with you, but not just because he's a tough football player. He doesn't know what a woman is. He doesn't know what a man is because he's never seen it. Now, we talked about this originally. This was going to be comparing that to being a Torah scholar. Mm-hmm. I think the guy who understands the Torah, and I know a lot of people get upset about this right here, there is a role for a man, and there is a role for a woman. The woman usually is not cussing out the woman down the street and pulling off her hair or wig, whatever, and fighting her. She's not doing that. And the man is traditionally not beating his wife. I think there has to be rules and a set amount of rules in society, and that we can't turn and say, well, we can do what we want. You can't tell me how to live my life. And I think that's where it really is.
Well, you know, the Torah, if you want to compare that's where we want to go.
I hate to have to throw the Torah in your face
the
here.
Torah scholar,
right?
But this is again, our society prizes the person who's developed all of these physical skills. But where does our society prize, reward, admire, look up to people who spend time and who do pursuits developing their person? So our society doesn't do that. Matter of fact, our society, disregards it. Matter of fact, our society thinks that if you spend your time in the books and you read about being a better person and all that, so what are you? You're a phony. That they don't even pay any attention to you.
True.
But there are avenues that we have that we're supposed to teach our children to admire, and that is how to become better, how to improve yourself. So someone, for example, I don't think it ever says anywhere in the Torah that you shouldn't hit your wife. It just says you can't hit people. Like what does it have to say don't hit your wife? Just you're not allowed to hit people, period. I mean, point. People, doesn't matter if you're a wife. I mean, who would hit their wife? Of course, you can't hit anyone. So if you start to integrate and inculcate in people the value, if our society would spend time and treasure that type of instruction where people could get instruction about being better people, about noble values, about the idea of self-improvement, instead of lionizing and heroizing all of these people who are just the opposite, that I think is what society, to me, society is upset. I even saw some lady who was a sports commentator, and she was just aghast at all of this. It really, really, really upset her. I think that she was really upset that she had bought into the fact that she'd become a sports commentator, and she dedicated her life to commenting on these people and these games and these things. In other words, she bought into it. She was talking about about her little daughter. Her little daughter already has her fantasy league. This lady is talking about her little daughter has a fantasy league. I mean, that is it. The country is in fantasy. It's fantasy. And we have to get back to things of real value. They have to spend time studying how to be better people. Now, that might mean that the person is not going to have the same snap or pop when they smack down the other guy. Well, if that's what we want as a society, that's what we're going to get. If you want something that's more ennobling, then that's what you'll get. Society can choose. What do you want? That's what you get.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I agree with you a little bit, but I don't know if that's the whole thing. I mean, you got to think, even in Jewish history, in our patriarchs, we were the same way. We wanted a tough football player. Isaac had two choices. He comes out there. Isaac's favorite son is not Jacob, the guy who's studying and reading in the books there. He wants the big, hairy guy. His son Esau, with a big, hairy guy, goes out and kills kills all the game in the field, the tough guy. Now, the wife, Rebecca, she's pro Jacob. Oh, look at Jacob. He's going to be a Torah scholar. I know, but look at Esau. He's out there beating up the people in the fields. He's shooting the game. That's what I like.
Gone biblical on me.
I had to go biblical on me. He was the first football player was Esau, and he was the favorite.
Yeah. Esau was a hunter.
Right.
He was a hunter. That's true. It's a good question. I have a feeling that Isaac, at least the way I have understood him, was trying to salvage Esau. Not that he necessarily preferred him. He was trying to find a place for Esau in this world and find hopefully maybe trying to get some type of a cooperation and get him to work together with Jacob.
I thought it was the man's man. He was the man's man,
Well, okay, that's different ways to understand that, I guess.
So I just think, I just think it's, and I agree with what you're saying, but I think it's more than just, we got to decide what we look at as the good man and the perfect man. We got to look at what a man is, what a woman. I think there are roles, and that's why I go back to the Torah, because there are roles for a man and a woman in society. Right. And chivalry, I know maybe that's not the right word to put it. I don't know if they use that in the Torah, but if you look at the Torah, that's the way things are supposed to be.
Well, so let me give you the quote. Here comes the quote of the day.
Okay.
The quote of the day is from Ethics of the Fathers. This is rabbinical teaching.
Oh, not the one you told me earlier from Mike Turner? That's a better quote, but it's okay. You can give me this one too.
This is the Ethics of the Fathers. The Ethics of the Fathers says, "Who is a strong man? He who conquers his will," meaning self-control. Okay. The self-control, the greatest strength that you can exhibit in life is self-control. So if we learn and we, again, admire, lionize people who exhibit self-control, who show restraint, who show the ability not to just react, but to act in a thinking in a premeditated fashion, to look into things, to stop, count to 3 or 3 Mississippi in
Right.
before you actually do something. Those are great people. That's what we're trying to raise. The person that will stop and think and will see, even though I might be outraged by this situation, even though, maybe this girl who weighs, 1/3 of what I weigh, even though she just slapped me or punched me or just called me a name,
Yep.
I can handle that. That is a strong man. But we don't inculcate that as a value.
That's true. No, I
we don't
agree.
look to the sources that preach that type of a thing. But what we do instead is we have everyone looking forward to tuning in on Sunday to watch just the opposite happen. So that's where our society is. So I believe our society has gone in the wrong direction in that it has made something like football as one of its highest values.
I got you. I understand that. I do get it. But let me ask you then. So you're not taking this as in more of an issue of the husband beating the wife or the girlfriend. This is more of a society in itself. We're looking at a violent, non-introspective person as our hero. That's the way.
Yeah,
you look
because to tell you the truth, I do believe that there is domestic violence in many different backgrounds. And it's not limited to a particular socioeconomic status or any particular racial group or anything like that. I mean, as a rabbi, I have been exposed to domestic violence in a lot of places that, wouldn't fit the stereotype. And since they're there, I guess there just isn't a stereotype.
Well, I've had that issue in my own life, and the reason I was able to stop it is finally I learned to run faster than my wife, and it ended it there. But it was a problem for a while.
Right.
I learned to get the heck out of the way really quick.
Barricade yourself in the bathroom.
Right.
Just hold,
I learned that. But so it is just. So I guess it is. No, let me ask you a question. Just because we're on that topic. What does the Torah say about that, beating your wife? Does it say anything? Are you allowed to beat your wife?
So as I said before, you're not allowed to beat anybody. What do you mean? You can't beat your wife. You can't beat anybody. You're just not allowed to beat. Now, it is true the Torah does talk about, the classic spare the rod and spoil the child, which means that you have to chastise and rebuke and do what it takes. Now, in different societies, I think that means different things. But it doesn't mean that you're supposed to hurt the child. What really happens in all these cases of abuse is, I don't know what was going on in Adrian Peterson's mind, but I think there comes a certain point where you are no longer trying to educate, you're venting your anger, you're venting your frustration.
Right.
That's what's happening. I mean, certainly Ray Rice was not trying to get his wife to be more polite to him. Right?
Really?
He just got a little upset and he just let go. That's where the violence comes from, when people let go. If there's instruction, there can be rebuke, and rebuke can come in a lot of different fashions. And there can be the spanking. But
this is for the child now.
Yeah,
Not the
right.
wife anymore.
Right.
Okay.
A parent can spank a child.
Right.
Parent can spank a child, but is the parent venting their anger and their frustration? If they are, then they're not allowed even to tap a child. If a parent is angry and they're venting, then they can't even touch the kid. If a parent understands and they're in total control of themselves and they've thought the situation through and they believe that at this point what the child needs, then they can do what the child needs. But as soon as they're venting, as soon as it's about the parent and not about the child, then they've lost it. And in most cases, it is about the parent and not about the child, because there's so many other ways to do it that anyone that really has to resort to that. There could be some situations where you have to resort to physical means, but very few and far in between. And what happens in most cases is people are just they don't know what to do. They're frustrated. And like the classic football player, you get frustrated and you smash them in the mouth. They call it smash mouth, right? There's even a term for it, right? And you smash them in the mouth. And that's what they know. And that is the only way they know to express themselves. And too many people jump to that conclusion. And I don't think that that is limited to any particular socioeconomic group or racial group or country or nationality or anything like that.
I don't think so either, but it might be more common in a situation, and that's why I go back to the whole kind of progressive society that we live in, and this is what I think is an issue. If you're in a society where you really didn't get to know your father, and you never came home and saw how a man treats a woman, and I'm going back from the kids to how you treat your spouse, and you never saw how it was done, I would assume you would be more likely to unless you live in a household where your father beats your mother all the time, I assume you would be more likely not to understand how a man treats a woman, and if she gets you mad and there's no difference, you're going to hit her.
And if you're a woman, you're more likely to put up with it than
true.
If you were raised in a household where that wasn't tolerated, where you didn't see that, and where you know that it's not normal. If you grew up in a household where you saw that, then you might have a tendency to think, well, that's my role, that's his role, that's just what happens, you know.
Well, that's why I think studies would show why Jewish people seem to do better in society, and even now, society like Chinese people and Oriental people coming together because they have a different type of family unit where they come in and the family unit stays together, and I think that means more than even the whole football story of the kid raised up in the football family, he's got violence, he's got whatever. I really think it has more to do with your family and how you're raised and the tradition in your family, and you know what a man is and what his role is, and you know what a woman is and what his role is. A man doesn't hit a woman. That's just what you know. In today's society, I think it makes it a lot tougher, and this goes along all different groups of people. If you come from a broken home without a father in the family, which is usually what it is, and you don't see this, I think you're more likely to end up not understanding how to treat your spouse or your children.
I can say honestly that I never saw my father hit my mother, but then again, I never saw my father hit anybody.
That's a good point.
He didn't hit. So, of course he didn't hit my mother. I mean, I never saw him hit anyone. And he got angry with people. There were times when he got really and people were in his face or he was in his face. I saw a lot of different interactions, work situations or, situations in life. I just never saw him hit anybody. He didn't hit. That's all. That's not the way he ever tried to resolve any actions
So maybe this is a little bit bigger than football or basketball. It's who you are, it's how you're raised, and if you're raised by a set of, I know we're not allowed to say values anymore, but if you're raised by a set of values, and you see that when you're growing up, maybe you will then take those values into your life, whatever your profession is.
Right. So
there's a lot of plumbers out there that are beating their wives.
Yeah, could be. But therefore, I would still say that what our society needs to do is perhaps tone down the passion for football and tone up a passion for values and ethics and decency. And it's not as much fun, but it's a lot healthier. And, this is what everyone should sit down. If everyone starts saying to their children, look, this is what football players are. They beat their wives, they do all this stuff. And everyone's, oh, how can you do that? I know a lot of really nice football players. I think if we start to teach our children not to idolize football players and not to have our kids want to stand outside. Why this is so upsetting? The kids are all standing in line to get the guy's autograph.
Right.
And then they're watching the guy beating his wife. Says, well, the guy, the autograph, I got his autograph. I stood in line to get his autograph because he makes me feel good and he beats his wife. So the connection is just too strong. It makes us all so embarrassed. What this has done, I believe, is exposing the king has no clothes. This is exposing the fact that we have enshrined people who are just nothing but racehorses, and those are the people that we admire, and other people who are trying to do something good with their lives, nothing.
So pretty much you're taking away everything. No football, no Jersey Shore, or what about the reality? Those guys aren't good either. What's left? What, are you going to watch Jeopardy every day and see if you can...
Bunch of monks.
That's about it. Yeah, so the rabbi's taking away all the fun.
Yeah.
But I get it. I get it this week. I think I know where you're coming from this week. All right, so when we go home, don't beat your wife and don't beat your husband. When you get home, just be nice.
Right.
Be nice. Unless they burn the chicken soup. You're allowed to do it then or no? That's divorce. You can divorce someone, but you can't punch them?
Yeah, you can divorce them. Don't you better not punch them.
Just don't punch them. All right. Next week, hopefully, the calm week in the news, nothing will be going on, and we'll talk about a good topic.
Yeah, like Rosh Hashanah.
Like Rosh Hashanah coming up. Good point. See you then.